OMG's, boys, girls, and betweens, how you doing? It is I, Red Gambit here, and I am joined by the lovely and fresh-smelling, minty-scented Nayrman, who is here for the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm just fine and dandy like sour candy. Here it's another week, it's another time for the Copilot Enabled, your weekly dose of all the geek news that is good enough for your earholes, that we will stab in there with chopsticks in the most loving and tender way possible. First up on the chopping block this week is possibly the most controversial news that we've had in a while. It is the Super Saiyan movie, Dragon Ball movie, God. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we actually record these very early in the morning for me in Australia. It's like 9 in the morning on Sunday, and I'm a little bit out of it. But anyway, Super Saiyan, Dragon Ball Z, there's going to be blue hair in the new Dragon Ball Battle of F movie. It's been confirmed that Super Saiyans who have been touched by the power of Super Saiyan God will have light blue, almost kind of like sky blue hair, and this is causing a fair amount of controversy between the old Dragon Ball Z fans. So before we go into that, Mr. Nayrman, what are your thoughts on this new sparkly transformation?
It seems utterly pointless considering they had a perfectly good Super Saiyan 4 they could have gone to, but no. You have to give him blue hair for no reason, make it even more anime.
Yes, because Mr. Nayrman is an advocate, is one of those very few people who will defend Dragon Ball GT. Is that, am I not mistaken there?
I won't defend GT, but there are a few things I do like about it, and Super Saiyan 4 is one of them, so I'm kind of disappointed that they're not bringing that back.
Yeah, I can take or leave Super Saiyan 4, honestly. The only thing I really don't like about Super Saiyan 4 is like the weird chest hair thing that they kind of have going on there. That's kind of just weirds me out a bit.
Yeah, I can see that. I like it better than Super Saiyan 3 at least, so making him go kind of blue hair for no reason is kind of weird. Have you heard about the translated name for it? Obviously not the official name, considering the name's not out yet, but the translated off of the Japanese magazine name.
No, I have not. Please elucidate me.
It's called the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan mode.
Because that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes no sense whatsoever, but then again, it is Japan, so yeah.
Yeah, well, they mentioned that I think it was in the new game that just came out that not even in that in the movie, obviously Goku in the last movie, he was no longer able to maintain the Super Saiyan form. However, he had absorbed some of its power. Is that, I haven't actually seen the movie, my bad on that, but you have. Is that not the case?
Yeah, basically that's what happened. He kind of was able to retain some kind of physical memory of the being in the Super Saiyan God form, so he was able to use it a little bit on his own. Yeah,
now Toriyama has gone on the record to say that he chose blue as the color for the Super Saiyan God mode Super Saiyan color hair on the basis that blue was not a very strong color, so which is actually very true in color psychology. It's obviously a relaxing color. So he did that because it's supposed to be the watered down version of Super Saiyan God. So what are your thoughts on that?
It seems kind of stupid to me, honestly. Then again, I'm not a big fan of the blue hair to begin with, but it just seems kind of a weird choice to make, all things considered. They could have easily done, I don't know, just red again, but spiked up like Super Saiyan, so it's kind of a halfway in between sort of thing. But that's just me.
Well, I kind of have two thoughts about it. The first thought is that if they wanted to do like a halfway house between Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan God, they could have gone with like orange hair, for example, obviously, because that's mixed between red and yellow. So I didn't really understand the choice to just go with blue instead. And it's not even a good color of blue. Like if it was like electric blue or something like that, if it was like cyanic blue, I would kind of be more on board with that. But the fact that it's like this really wussy sky blue color just does not work for me at all. I'm like a really big fan of the Super Saiyan 3 look. I thought that was always the best looking Super Saiyan form, just in terms of how fucking badass Goku looked. So like to go to this as like the new like powered up form for me is just not interesting at all. And the second thought that I had is that like, okay, so we've got a new transformation for the Super Saiyans and we've got a new transformation for Frieza, and they both just rely on palette swaps. Have we reached the point where Toriyama is really just phoning it in?
Well, I think it's pretty clear he doesn't want much to do with Dragon Ball Z anymore. That was the case like 20 years ago when the series ended, but you know, it makes money, they'll continue to do it, and they don't want to make GT canon, so they have to find some way to give them power-ups without having to resort to Super Saiyan 4 or something revolving from GT.
So, so he's being dragged in it purely for the money. So what you're saying is that he has become the Hideo Kojima of anime.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm not a fan. Obviously, you're not a fan. There are people who are fans of it, but to me, it just seems like such a wasted opportunity for me that they could have done so many things that were more interesting, but now they're just like, power swaps.
Yeah, that's basically what it feels like. They will be in the new 3DS fighting game, though, Gold Freeze and Blue Hair Goku, so I'll get to play as them soon enough. I'm sure there'll be DLC for Xenoverse eventually anyway, so yay, kind of.
Yay, I'll totally ignore that. Okay, moving on to our next topic of the day. We have the Convergence event for DC it's rolling along nicely. Last week we mentioned this, that you had read the first episode of it, but now there are more comics that have been released in it. I have actually steered clear of it. I haven't actually looked at Convergence as of yet, just because I've seen those kind of mixed reviews, and honestly, I'm not as big an old school fan of DC Comics as you are. I'm actually more of a fan of like the more modern version of a lot of characters, things like that. So to see like these older versions of characters being dragged out of mothballs is not really my kind of thing. But you said that you've been enjoying it, so why don't you tell us a bit about that?
The short version is Brainiac's having a world tournament of all the universes go fight each other. Yay!
Oh my god, it's the Cell games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just to bring it back to Dragon Ball for a second. Okay, so also you could say it's also similar to Marvel's Contest of Champions.
In a way, yeah. This is a bit more cosmic in a sense that Brainiac's doing a whole lot of universe shifting. But it's pretty interesting so far. It's nice to see some of the older versions of characters show up. It's not going to be like a whole universe reboot sort of thing. It's just sort of a, hey, let's bring everyone back for a month or two while we move all of our shit to California.
So this is he just decided, woke up one day and just decided that he just wants everyone to fight to the death in front of him, and, well, presumably to the death at least, being Brainiac and all, and that's kind of it?
Pretty much, yeah. There's not a whole lot going on story-wise. Like I said, this is just sort of a break while they move everything to California, so they needed something, so they kind of did this World Tournament Saga sort of thing.
Okay, and it's obviously fan service people who are longtime fans of DC Comics like yourself. So are there any parts of this that are really appealing to you? Obviously, we are seeing those older versions of characters. We are seeing Soups with his, with his underwear back on the outside, things like that. So are there any part that you're really enjoying of it, aside from just kind of the goofiness of just getting a whole bunch of old characters and throwing them into the mix with one another?
It's a little bit interesting just to kind of see everyone put in a position they're not really used to, as in fighting other heroes. Because unlike Marvel, that doesn't really happen a lot in the DC universe. Not to say that's a bad thing in Marvel side, it's just that it happens a lot in Marvel. So it's just kind of interesting to see heroes fighting each other. It's also interesting to see kind of different versions of characters fighting each other. Like we have Thomas Wayne Batman from the Flashpoint universe doing stuff. We have Captain Thunder from the Flashpoint universe doing stuff. We have Golden Age Superman potentially doing stuff. We have the Shazam universe doing stuff. We have a bunch of forgotten characters coming back and doing stuff. It's just kind of interesting to see how all of these characters can potentially interact in different ways versus creating some kind of paradox where they're together. This is just saying, okay, they're all together for a month or two, have at it.
Okay, so now when they bring back these older versions of the characters, are they actually being brought into like the modern continuity? So like, Golden Age Superman can meet up with like current Superman, or are they all just sort of mutually exclusive from one another?
It's kind of all the universes being brought into an area where they can all interact. It's not really a strict, they're in the modern version of the universe, they're just sort of in this time-lapse zone where everything kind of mixes.
Okay, so it's kind of like a pocket universe where they're all just hanging out for the moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, well, that's enough for Convergence. The third topic of the week is that the trailer for... Well, first of all, the actual news for Deus Ex Mankind Divided was leaked about 2 days early before the trailer was actually announced. That said, the trailer was announced 2 days later, and we got to see our first look. It's all CG, there's no in-game footage that I'm aware of in the trailer of the new game. We get to see the follow-up to the last Deus Ex game, which came out about 2 or 3 years ago. It was a game that I enjoyed very thoroughly. I wasn't too much a fan of the actual story of it, but just in terms of like the art design and the soundtrack, that for me carried the game almost completely. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what's happening with the new Deus Ex. Have you seen the trailer for it yet?
No, I particularly haven't, but I have seen a little bit of the previous Deus Ex game, and all I can say is, I never asked for this.
that gravelly voiced Adam Jensen, yes, very much so. Well, yeah, it's as I said, it's a CG trailer, so there's not really a whole lot to say about that, but it's a game that I'm actually surprised that it actually got a sequel to it, because I wasn't sure how well it did in terms of sales, but it was very interesting to me, just because I'm also, if you've seen my channel, obviously you've seen it because you're here, but if you look through the archives, I did do a playthrough of Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines, which is an old PC RPG, and I felt like it was very much a spiritual successor to that, even if the people involved with it weren't the same team. Obviously a very different company. That Truckee Games made Vampire, and they were disbanded shortly after its release. But the 2 games played very similarly, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So the idea of getting a sequel to it, it's a game that has this phenomenal art style to it. It has this they went for a very kind of neo-Renaissance kind of look, that they brought the era of the Renaissance into the future, and I thought it was a great look. It has a great palette to it. The soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. It's a soundtrack that I still listen to almost on a daily basis to this day. So yeah, I'm just excited for it.
Yeah, that's good to hear. We always need sequels to games people are actually interested in, versus another Call of Duty and first-person shooter land. But
we need more Assassin's Creed games, damn it.
No, we don't. We really, really don't.
Yeah, if anyone's been checking out the Blood Bowl playthrough that I've been doing, I actually discussed that with Dre. Dre has actually been a big fan of Assassin's Creed for a while, but even he has kind of reached the point of just saturation with the Assassin's Creed games, and has not really been particularly interested in the last couple that have come out. So yeah, I think that we might be seeing, and this is obviously going off to a bit of a tangent here, but we might be seeing between, like, you know, that and Call of Duty, perhaps some market saturation. I don't know. Obviously, he isn't a yardstick for the rest of the gaming population, but I kind of hope that he is, because I don't think like the behavior of releasing a new game every year, or even more than one game every year, in the case of Assassin's Creed, should continue to be rewarded. Yeah,
once a year is a bit kind of busy nowadays, considering how long games tend to make. Not to mention how we kind of get a lot of the samey types of games nowadays. Some exceptions aside, but a lot of games just tend to be more and more like each other these days, so once a year is kind of not necessary anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on the Deus Ex trailer. So if you haven't checked it out already, I will obviously be including, there will be footage from it in this clip, but there won't be any audio, so I will include a clip to that in the bottom in the description, so by all means check it out. And that kind of does it for the big news that's happened this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to a bunch of smaller topics that we can't really discuss a lot. We might be doing this more in future, considering that we are still in the Summer Games drought, but we've got a few topics that we just want to kind of rapid fire off and discuss and see where they go. So first topic that we want to discuss quickly is that the PC version of Dead or Alive 5 was released on PC this week. We mentioned that last week. We mentioned how it was pointless to release a game with no online. But of course there are advantages to releasing games on PC, and one of them is modding. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, within 2 days of the game's release, there were nude mods available for the game, which I'm sure is irking Team Ninja to absolutely no end, considering that they actually did go out of their way to ask the PC gaming crowd to respect their creation, and like in the most general possible terms, basically said, like, appeal to them and say no mood mod, no oh god, dyslexia, no nude mods, please.
Well, when they release quarter-finished games, I don't think they get to really complain about what people do to the project.
You feel that they really just brought this on themselves, do you?
In a way, yeah, but also you have to remember it's the internet. They're going to do whatever they want anyway, regardless of how much you ask. In fact, if you ask not to, they're going to do it even more.
They're going to do it harder because 4chan.
Pretty much, yeah. So, has there been any particular mods besides the nude ones?
Oh, look, I'm sure there's plenty of other nude mods. And I mean, what's interesting about the PC release is that, like, the PC, gaming community, PC Master Race, obviously has, like, this very big community built around modding, and a lot of that modding is actually building new costumes and things like that. Which you probably saw on some of my Street Fighter videos, the earlier ones when I was still running it on PC as opposed to Xbox. I was playing around a lot with just free costumes I could download for that. And given that Dead or Alive is a game that has like a whole economy built around the ridiculous amount of DLC costumes that are available for the girls in that game, it's probably going to hit them in the hip pocket a fair bit more than we actually consider, because why would you pay money for costumes when you can just download them for free?
Yeah, pretty much. That is a problem, and I don't really approve of just kind of stealing stuff. But, yeah, ultimately, if you can get free kind of cool stuff made by fans, why not? As far as it's not really harming anything, I don't see really a problem with that, and I know certain gaming companies have embraced stuff like that as long as it's fair use stuff or just kind of appropriate for the game. I don't see why it should really be frowned upon.
Yeah, exactly. Staying with fighting games, we also got the release of Cinder is coming out for Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct being a game which has adopted the fairly unique model of just having a ongoing release schedule for new characters. They started the game when it came out as a launch title for the Xbox One almost a year and a half ago, was it now? I don't know. It came out with 6 characters, and ever since then they've been just steadily releasing new characters to the game every, I think 3 months. Now we're up to around 15 or 16 characters for the game, which obviously makes it a lot more interesting to play. And the newest one coming out very shortly is Cinder. Have you checked this out at all? Have you seen any pictures of this fiery fighter?
No, I haven't. I don't really follow Killer Instinct news, mostly because it's exclusive to the Xbox One, but what can you tell me about this character?
Well, Killer Instinct is basically, it's kind of a reboot of the original Killer Instinct, which came out for the N64, and Cinder was one of the characters that was in that game, both Killer Instinct 1 and Killer Instinct 2. So he's a returning character to the cast. The interesting thing about what KI does as opposed to the older Killer Instinct games is that they've put a lot of work into redesigning the characters. So characters who are returning have gotten very cool makeovers. And Cinder is one of those characters who he was just started out as kind of a like Cinder and Glacius were both kind of homages to like the T-1000 obviously from Terminator 2. And so yeah, that's kind of this thing now. It's been changed. He's been changed quite radically, so now no longer bears that kind of resemblance to the character. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing. I'm looking forward to seeing him come out. I'll definitely check him out when he does come out. So yeah, I just want to just raise awareness of KI if you guys have not seen it already.
Yeah, no problem with that, especially if an Xbox, you could probably pick it up for not too much. I personally don't, mostly because I don't have too many exclusives that I want, but I know a lot of people who are happy with the system, so if you're into fighting games, you should probably take a look at it, considering Street Fighter V probably isn't coming out for a while.
Well, that's the thing, is that when it was announced that Street Fighter V was going to be exclusive for PC and PS4, the Xbox camp actually went on record and said that they weren't particularly worried about that because Killer Instinct was their own flagship title and they were going to focus on that.
Interesting. I wasn't really aware of their response to it, so that's a pretty good attitude to take about it rather than being moany and pissy and stuff.
Well, this was the official spokesperson for Killer Instinct for Xbox. God, too early in the morning. So yeah, I mean, they're obviously not going to get too shitty about things. So yeah, but anyway, that's that. Moving on from there, we have just a little snippet of news that I found interesting was that the Tomb Raider reboot, which I'm quite a fan of, the one that came out a couple of years ago that was released for last generation and was re-released for current generation consoles, actually sold a total of 8.5 million copies, which in anyone's language is a crap load of copies. It's way more than most games would normally sell. The question is, I mean, are Square Enix happy with that? We don't know. It has to be enough copies sold to actually turn a profit, especially given the fact that the game has already got a sequel in development, which is going to be a timed exclusive for the Xbox One. So, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on where that's going to be going, or what Square's thoughts may be on that particular number?
Knowing Square, it'll probably be a massive disappointment, but we'll have to see kind of what their attitude is towards it. Ultimately, I feel that's a really good number. That's a really good thing for a reboot, especially one that was so highly acclaimed as the Tomb Raider reboot was. So I'm happy to see that it did well, and I'm glad to see that it's getting its sequel, it's getting some more exposure, it's staying in the news a little bit for its good numbers, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah, now, when it was announced that the game was going to be a timed exclusive for Xbox One, obviously a lot of PS4 owners got up in arms about that. Do you have any thoughts on the whole controversy surrounding time exclusives? I mean, obviously, exclusives for platforms in the past have obviously been a very big thing, but that's been a tradition which has been dying out over the last console generation, and particularly this console generation, just because the actual cost of developing games is now so astronomically high that it just does not make sense unless you receive some huge financial benefits to make your game exclusive for one particular console.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I feel, is that Microsoft must have thrown them a whole lot of money to make it a timeless exclusive, because financially there is no reason not to. If the game's bad, word of mouth will get out and people won't buy it when it comes out for the new system. If it's good, then you have people just waiting and being kind of annoyed for when it's not out on their system yet, and they may move on to other things. So ultimately, there's no good financial reason to make it a timed exclusive anymore. Obviously, if you're a second party or a first party title, you kind of don't have much of a choice with that. But for something like Tomb Raider, that's just kind of a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, well, speaking of financial incentives for companies, and going back to Street Fighter for a moment, Ono-san has basically gone on the record, Ono-san being the developer for the head project leader for Street Fighter V, has basically gone on the record saying that Street Fighter V would not have been possible were it not for the fact that Sony stepped in and basically drove a dump truck full of money up to Capcom headquarters and offered to pay for the game. Yeah,
pretty much. That can happen sometimes, and I can understand why that happens, but ultimately it's just kind of a weird situation in a lot of regards. So we'll see how it does. I'm not too hopeful on how it'll go, but we'll just have to see.
True. As a bit more of a request, we did have one person ask us to discuss the Sonic and Megaman's Worlds Unite crossover in the comics. I have no idea. I mean, I know those characters. I had no idea there was crossover going on. You do. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do read the Archie comics for both Sonic and Mega Man, so I'm pretty familiar with this. I really like the first crossover. This is just kind of another big crossover between the two. Obviously, Dr. Wily and Dr. Eggman are up to no good again, so Mega Man and Sonic have to stop them. But this time, it's Sigma from Mega Man X series.
Curse those scoundrels!
Yeah, so we'll have Sigma along with the Mega Man X series coming in as well as a bunch of other characters from other Capcom and Sega franchises. You'll be happy to know Ryu will be Hadokening, whatever the verb would be, in comic form against Sonic.
Hadokenizing?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of Archie comics, but look, I'm glad people are still enjoying them. I'm glad that they get to do these kind of crossovers and things like that. So, yeah, look, more power to you.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. I normally get the visual novel version, so not visual novel, graphic novel version, so I'll be a little bit late to the party on that, but I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. And as our final just quick topic to discuss, the new season of anime has started in Japan. I haven't really checked it out yet. I'm still catching up on all the titles, but you obviously have had a chance to check it out, so what are your thoughts on things so far?
This has been a pretty good season. There have been it's mostly somewhat more comedic stuff compared to last season, so that's kind of interesting. We're getting some good shows. Nothing too terribly groundbreaking, but nothing really bad either. The big hitter this season is obviously the continuation of Fate's Stay Night, which I'm really looking forward to seeing its conclusion, mostly because it's such a plot-heavy show, and it's based off a visual novel, so it's a different route compared to the first series. It's not just a straight-up remake, so it's looking good so far. It's only about 2 episodes in. We have a few good shows, a few that I'm putting on my kind of pull list as far as things go. So I can give you slightly more of a list if you're interested.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I do have Crunchyroll, so I'm able to get access to the stuff. I just don't know what's good. And as I said, I'm still going through all the stuff just because I really only just got my Crunchyroll and Netflix hooked up to my Xbox One, so I'm kind of going through all the stuff. I'm going through Sword Art Online, as we mentioned previously. I'm going through Naruto again. I haven't been following that for about a year and a half, so I'm still in the middle of the Great Ninja War. And things like that. So yeah, I need to get my butt in gear and actually finish watching those.
Yeah, you're actually watching Naruto Datubeo.
Oh god, they actually mentioned, did you hear the thing about his son as well?
Yeah, Boruto or whatever his stupid name is.
Boruto. Well, apparently Boruto is like in Japanese when you translate it means lightning or something similar to that.
It's still a stupid name.
It's a stupid name to us, but it may not be a stupid name to them. Look, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Help me out.
And no, it's still a stupid name.
Fair enough. On that note, we shall wrap up this episode of the Copilot Enabled for this week. If you look, please like, subscribe, do those things, spread the word. I'd love to be able to bring our fairly inept and clueless wisdom to as many people as possible. If people want to check you out, Mr. Nayrman, where can they find you?
You can find me on my main channel of Brain Scratch Comms on YouTube, as well as you can follow me on Twitter at NayrmanBSC.
Very much so, and also I'd like to give a personal shout out to all the new people who have subscribed to my channel after Nayrman was good enough to do me a solid and put a promo up on his channel, so thank you very much to everyone who has joined, and I hope that we have not disappointed you in our expulsion of wisdom this week, I guess. I don't know. Thanks for sticking around. We will see you guys very soon, and have yourselves a great day. Goodbye!